Today's Spotlight is brought to you in part by presenting sponsor, First Community Financial Bank, the community bank where you come first. Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm your host, Jane Wernette, and I'm joined now by Nancy Wiersum and Lisa Schwartzberry from 360 Youth Services. So welcome, ladies, to the set.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank
welcome
you for
back,
having us.
Nancy,
Thank
to
you.
the set. We always love having you in.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Now, 360 Youth Services, you have a big and very important mission, and it's about transforming the lives of young people. So expound a little bit on that for us, Nancy.
Well, I'd be delighted to. Well, 360 Youth Services focuses really on three areas for our youth: substance abuse prevention education, counseling, and housing. And what I like to say is we have something for everybody's child with our substance abuse prevention programs. They're in all the schools, grades 6 through 12 in District 203 and 204. So that reaches more than 25,000 students a year with our Power of Choice program. Our counseling program reaches the kids that might be at risk. And we have a counseling center on Bond Street for ages 10 to 25 and their families. Sometimes it's just mom and dad that can be a better parent because they get a little bit of counseling. And then the third pillar of our mission is housing for homeless youth. And a lot of people don't know that we have a group home for teenage boys, and we're actually a licensed Illinois child welfare agency. And then we have a huge transitional housing program for young adults, 18 to 24. So it's a big, broad mission.
It is a big, broad mission, and you're really servicing across a broad spectrum of needs in the community.
Correct. And the goal, though, with all of them is to equip our youth to navigate, honestly, the many, many challenges we know they're going to face.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about those challenges, because one of the challenges that we have, particularly at this time of year, is the kids are going back to school. And for many kids, that's a wonderful experience. But for some kids, there's a little bit of anxiety associated with that, and there are some challenges. So Lisa, talk a little bit about some of those stresses that the kids are feeling, and then how are you working with them to overcome?
Sure. Well, Jane, I actually have a 12-year-old daughter myself going into 7th grade this year, and so I think a lot of parents can relate when I say the stress comes from heading into a new school year, maybe not seeing classmates for several weeks over the summer, wondering if those relationships have changed in any way. Maybe they have a new teacher this year, or they are worried about finding their locker at school. These are all common stressors, but I think they're pretty consistent among young people going back to school this year. Some of the ways we can help is, I think parents really look for resources, and a few of the resources that we have available is this month our blog articles are focused on this very topic of going back to school. So our clinical therapists have written some really great articles about going back to school, and then as Nancy mentioned, we do have the counseling services. So for youth ages 10 to 25 and their families, just to talk to somebody a little bit more about some of those stressors with an additional outside party.
And it's really figuring out for everybody. I mean, everybody feels stress. It's just a matter of how we cope with it, right?
That's right.
So for some people, maybe the blog is so helpful, and it's so wonderful to be able to get resources online when you can look at it when you want, where you want. But then some people need a little more. Yeah. Now, with the counseling services, those you mentioned, Nancy, are up on Bond Street, right?
Correct.
And ages 10 to 25? And by appointment, how does that work?
Right, so we have all the information on our website.
Okay.
People can call for an appointment and talk to one of our clinical therapists and get something set up.
That's wonderful. Now, Nancy, you spoke a little bit about one of your pillars being that substance abuse prevention education. And I know that 360 has been very heavily involved in that for a long time. And you have some other specific programs that are a part of that, like Snowball. Tell us a little bit more about that and what you've got going for this year.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned Snowball, because that is upcoming for the fall. It'll be the last weekend of October this year. And the Snowball retreat, we're actually the Naperville leader for Operation Snowball, which is an international program, by the way.
Is that
a lot
right?
of people don't know that.
I did not know that. So
There
that's
you go.
interesting. I've learned something new.
Yes, and we've been doing it since the 80s. And it's a 3-day retreat. They actually go to Camp Henry Horner, which is north of this area, about 90 minutes, so they get away from their current environment. But what it does is it is teaching them to make healthy decisions regarding drugs and alcohol, but it's also helping them to discover who they are. We help them develop those coping skills and that resilience that you referred to, and help them kind of become aware of who they are and become that person that they are going to be. And as we say, we invite them to come to the retreat to experience their potential. So this is through small groups, it's through skits, it's letting the kids dress up funny, all that kind of stuff. The teens have a big part in playing it, in putting the skits together and playing that role, determining the themes. So the teen leaders know what the teens are, first of all, what their challenges are, and then ways that they could reach them.
Okay, so it's peer-led. Some of that's peer-led, which is I think that's a very exciting part of that whole process. I mean, I know I've had children that have gone to Operation Snowball and really found it to be just an incredibly enlivening weekend. And it really it's a safe place. It's a safe place. Lisa, what have you seen? I mean, you're a parent of somebody right in that age group. What have you seen with Operation Snowball?
Well, I think that Snowball is really a place where, as Nancy said, these teens come in and they can really be who they are. They're accepted for who they are. They're celebrated for who they are. The program really focuses on building self-confidence among teens, and we have time and time again have had students come out of the Snowball weekend saying that it's literally changed their lives. We have an example of a student, Zach, who went to Nequa and went off to college, and as a freshman he joined a fraternity, and as he got into his college year, as many kids do, found that the drug and party culture was quite prominent. And although his fraternity brothers were giving him a hard time, he felt fully comfortable resisting those pressures of the party culture and feeling fully confident with his decisions to stay kind of on a good path. And when asked, he said he fully attributes that to his experience in Snowball. So we're pretty proud of that.
That's a wonderful endorsement. It's a wonderful endorsement. Those temptations and challenges are all around. It's how you manage to navigate that path.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Nancy, 1971 was a big year because that was a year that 360 was what came to be, and you're going to help me understand a little bit about kind of where that's been, because this is a big celebration for you this year, 45 years old.
That it is. Thank you. Yes, 1971, what happened was there were a group of students hanging around downtown, and parents became concerned. And so it was actually a group of parents, some people from churches, the Naperville Township had a role in it, got together and said, we have to do something for these kids. So that's really how it was, it grew into be NCO. Many people in town know the organization as it was known for 40 years as NCO. So that's how it really began, with that counseling part.
Right.
And then later we added our group home for boys. We added the substance abuse prevention education and Snowball. Snowball, we actually began in 1985.
Okay.
And then we added our transitional housing program in about the year 2000. And you'll appreciate this, across all of our housing programs, and we have 42 clients at any one time that we are housing. This year we reached the 1,000th milestone. We have cared for 1,000 young people through our housing programs in those 45 years.
Bravo.
And many of those students, I'm always astounded when I hear their stories, and I thought I'd heard everything. Recently, a young man shared with me that he had been sleeping in a graveyard.
Oh.
In the mausoleum of a graveyard. Because it was covered, he put his head on his backpack. But the good news is they can stay with us for up to 2 years, which is really long enough to change the trajectory of their lives.
Transforming lives. You really have been for a full 45 years, and we hope that you will continue to be in the community celebrating and transforming lives for another 45 years. So thank you for stopping by. We so appreciate it. And if you would like to find out more about the very many ways 360 is supporting our community's youth, please go and visit their website. We're going to take a quick break, but stay tuned. We're coming right back with more Spotlight.